Well, the Ontario Liberals are holding a news conference on the province's Greenbelt Review. Let's listen in.
Au gouvernement de leur accorder une rémunération de 8,3 milliards de dollars, $8.3 billion. This week, the government lost one of its most senior ministers, one with a 4 decades long record of public service. A decent person caught up in a web of deceit. Steve Clark made some really bad choices, and he's paid a high price. He resigned this week because he's had enough of protecting the Premier. Protect the King is the name of this game. It started a year ago when the Premier's office hand-picked Ryan Amato to be Minister Clark's rookie chief of staff. They hand-picked him to be able to control the outcome and insulate the Premier. Again, protect the King. Now it's Minister Calandra's turn. Another minister with a record of public service in his community. How far will he go to protect the King? How much will he risk? And I'll take your questions.
John, do you think this government believes that there should be a green belt at all? The Premier called it said it was like Chinese communism or something.
The Premier fundamentally does not understand the purpose behind the green belt. It's a trust. It's a legacy for future generation. It protects water. It cleans the air. It protects natural heritage. We have enough land inside our cities. The Premier knows that. His task force told them that. I'm sure that he would ask anybody on a municipal council and they'd say, yeah, we don't really need the green belt. In fact, some municipal councils have told them that. No. The Premier doesn't respect the green belt. He doesn't understand it. It's about what's important to the Premier. And what's important to the Premier is making sure that he can reward his friends, because he wants them to still be his friends. And that's really important to him. So, I have to say this. I was thinking about this morning. I didn't include it in my remarks. I saw the Attorney General's, well, first of all, I didn't think the Attorney General could top the King's Counsel thing. But this, after the fact, changing the rules, going to be tougher. After this thing's happened, it's like, don't worry about it. It's happened, it's done, and don't worry about it. But forget the new rules. I have one question for the Premier. So, Premier Ford, if it's found that people in your office acted improperly, as Ryan Amato did, will you do the right thing, like Steve Clark did, eventually, and resign? That's a fair question. When I look at this, the more we find out. The Premier's former executive assistant working with Mr. X, an unregistered lobbyist who's passing brown envelopes. And they're working together. That's just, he's not in government right now, but he certainly has a close relationship with the Premier, I'm sure.
Is this government, Minister Calandra, the new housing minister, kept repeating that they need to build houses, but are they confusing or intentionally muddling a land or a housing crisis with a land crisis? Because they're different things.
What's happening here has never been about housing. It's never been about immigration. It's never been about what's in the public interest. What this has all been about is the furthering of private interests and making some billionaires multi-billionaires. That's what this is all about. They're just muddying the waters. If they were really serious about building homes, they would have been working with cities to try to figure out the land that we already own in cities as a province, land that cities own, and working with them. And I wouldn't suggest they do this, but even if they wanted to crack open the Greenbelt, expropriate, pay a greenfield price, work with developers, ensure that you build attainable housing, but also make sure that you build affordable housing where people can live. Simple solution. That wasn't their solution. It wasn't in the public interest. It furthered private interests, the interest of billionaires who also happen to be fundraisers and friends of the Premier. That simple. It's wrong. It is wrong on so many levels. And this thing's not going away. No matter how much Minister Calandra gets out here every day and tells us how hard they are working at building houses. We accepted 21 recommendations, except the most important one, which is you have enough land already. Get started. They didn't do that.
Do you buy it all? So Allison asked a really good question, Allison Jones. Would they talk to the task force, the housing task force again? Do they think that the numbers would change? Like, do you think, because the federal immigration policy has increased, granted after they opened up the Greenbelt, but do you think that the task force would change its stance on the Greenbelt given the new federal immigration numbers?
Look, I think we need to separate out housing and what's happened here. When I'm talking, there's enough land to build inside cities. We could just get started there. And if the government really wanted to, they could have expropriated instead of making billions of dollars for their friends. So that's an issue that government could have tackled in a way that furthered the public interest and not private interests. I have no confidence in this government doing things that are truly solely in the public interest. So whether they go back to the task force or not, I mean, right now they're talking about opening up more lands. And a lot of the lands that they have, they can't be developed for years and years. The Auditor General told us that.
Does it surprise you? So the government has taken a beating on this. The polls are showing that it's